And good afternoon. Welcome to We Believe Digital Newsbreak. Chris Young here with you today. I've got a whole bunch of stories to share with you as we close out the week this week. Our call-in number here is 1-800-492-5186. And maybe you have an idea for a podcast or a product or service you'd like to advertise. We Believe Digital is here for you. We're reaching more and more households each week. It's part of our goals to amp up the visibility of this emerging media company here in downtown Jackson. So we'd be happy to hear from you. Be happy to sit down and talk to you about some possibilities. Filming, voice work, podcasts, advertising formats, all kinds of different opportunities to help you and help you move your product and service along in the marketplace. And we have many very unique podcasts here that you just don't see in a lot of places, and there's hundreds of people following them on a very regular basis. So if you've got a thought and you think it's something you want to get out and share with people, talk to our producers here, see what the possibilities would be. We'd love to have you. So today we'll start out on the global side of things as usual. A report coming out of the Associated Press this morning, the Wagner Military Contracting Group. Who knew contracting groups? Threatening to pull out of a protracted battle in the eastern Ukraine city of Bakhmut, saying that Russia's military command is starving them of ammunition and that it's causing heavy losses for them. So very interesting to see a corporation speak out so loudly against the people that are paying their bills in the middle of a wartime situation like that. So we'll have to follow that. There was more last Wednesday. We reported to you about this possible missile drone strike on the Kremlin, and more information is coming out that makes that look very suspect, including why there were some people spotted on camera climbing up on the dome of the Kremlin, at 3:00 in the morning. So it looks like there's footage that the missile went right by the Kremlin, didn't hit anything, but then an explosion was created after the fact. So we'll have to just pay attention to that. The World Health Organization, and I apologize, I just will not be able to pronounce that man's name, the leader. But the World Health Organization has downgraded COVID, saying it's no longer an emergency. Not saying it's gone away, but saying that it's no longer considered an emergency. I'm not sure exactly what those thresholds are, but certainly the numbers have gone down. In the U.S., in this last week, last week to bring us up to the end of April, there were 1,052 COVID deaths in the U.S. and 14 deaths in Mississippi last week. Looking at the worldwide numbers, it's just a staggering number of 765 plus million people dead from COVID, and those numbers go back to that point in December 2019 up to last week when they first started seeing COVID, even though it wasn't declared, an emergency till I think February of 2020. So there's some numbers in there even before it was declared an emergency. In the United States, 6.92 million people have died of COVID so far. Now, pardon me, I just misspoke. That's globally. The number I gave you earlier, 765 million, was the number of cases, and the actual worldwide COVID deaths, 6.9 to 0.93 million. And then in the U.S., 1.12 million deaths caused by COVID. So just a staggering pandemic that's wreaked havoc on the whole way of life, not just here in the United States, but around the world. But there's been certain declines in the number of new cases over time. It's been going down on a very monthly basis. Got a little bit here for you on this whole coronation thing that's going on this weekend, starting tomorrow. Over in England. But one short story before that. Wednesday, we reported that a 13-year-old student had killed 8 fellow students and a security guard at a school in Serbia, and how rare that was. Well, yesterday, a gunman killed 8 people and wounded 14 others in 2 villages in Serbia. So very, very rare to have this happen, but here we are 2 times in 1 week. Police arrested a suspect Friday after an all-night search. So on to this King Charles, and I'm relying very much on a Associated Press report about kind of the blowback, if you will. There's so many people just gleeful about this coronation of King Charles III to be crowned tomorrow. But, there is more to the story on that. There will be soldiers in the procession carrying flags from the Bahamas, South Africa, Tuvalu, and far beyond. I think about 13 different nations, alongside British troops in a big military procession in honor of the monarchy. So the report I looked at said, for some, the scene will affirm the ties that bind Britain and its former colonies. But for many others in the Commonwealth, a group of nations mainly made up of places once claimed by the British Empire, Charles's coronation is seen with apathy at best. In those countries, the first crowning of a British monarch in 70 years is an occasion to reflect on oppression and colonialism's bloody past. The displays of pageantry in London will jar, especially with growing calls in the Caribbean to sever all ties with the monarchy. Interest in, this is a quote from a Anglican priest in the Jamaican capital, Kingston. This is Reverend Sean Major Campbell. Interest in British royalty has waned since more Jamaicans are waking to the reality that the survivors of colonialism and the Holocaust of slavery are yet to receive reparatory justice. So a lot of people just want to believe that this just never happened, it's behind us, and we'll move on. But when you coronate this new king, first time in 70 years, all these memories come back for a lot of people. So that's another side of the story. I was happy to see that covered so comprehensively in the Associated Press. On the U.S. side, another choking death. This man's at the hands of another New York subway rider, setting off powerful reaction. A lot of people upset about this, marching out in the streets in New York City. Some calling it criminal, racist act, even as authorities want to reserve judgment. The mayor of New York City certainly was one of those that said, it appears horrible, but let's let the people do the jobs and figure out what's going on. The governor of New York said that everything that she saw in that video, there's none of that she considered appropriate in any way. Every bit of it was wrong. So differing sides to that coin. The man's name was Jordan Neely. And he was 30 years old, African American. The medical examiner says that the death was by a homicide caused by compression of the neck. The video shows him in a chokehold for a prolonged period of time. Not the only story sort of related to that. At least it is in my mind. You know, the back to Tyre Nichols that we reported on quite a bit. That the medical examiner there in Memphis is saying that he died of blows to the head suffered when he was beaten by Memphis police during the January arrest. An autopsy report showed that yesterday. They said the manner of death was homicide. The report released by the medical examiner described brain injuries, cuts and bruises to the head and other parts of the body. Nichols was black, as were the 5 police officers fired and charged with second-degree murder and other counts after his death. They all pleaded not guilty on February 17th, so we'll pick that up when the trial gets going on Tyre Nichols' death. We don't often report on stories in Oregon, but here's the exception. The Republicans blocking votes on bills about abortion, gun control, and gender-affirming health care in Oregon this week have based their boycott on an obscure law. And, you know, if I was to tell you about Republicans blocking votes and ask you, what do you think the subjects were, I'm sure you'd guess, you know, those are among the top issues: abortion, gun control, and gender-affirming health care. 44-year-old state law requires bill summaries to be written at a reading level of an 8th or 9th grader. So these GOP lawmakers in Oregon are deciding that the bill summaries that they've received, that they're supposed to review and vote on, are not written at the appropriate grade level. What do you do with that? So they say they've walked out now, and today's the 3rd day that they've walked out of their jobs that they get paid for because they say that the bill summaries are not written at the proper grade level. 1979 law they're relying on. So that's it for the national side for this Friday newscast. We got a little bit of time before we take our midway break here in just a couple of minutes. So just another reminder that and we have significant information about governors and Mississippi and all, but today is another day. No Republican legislators holding any hearings on the profound TANF scandal that rocked, supposedly the largest embezzlement, fraud, theft in Mississippi history. Money turned into a slush fund by GOP folks and GOP administrators, certainly with some connections to the past and the present governor. And we got a whole lot more for you on that when we come back from the break. But again, no hearings being held. So these people, they just don't want to talk about this unless they absolutely have to. But there's some court proceedings that are going on that are going to bring more light to this. And lots of investigation of this going on. So we'll continue to follow this as we go along. And we'll go ahead and stop there for our midway break, and we'll see you back shortly.
Looking for the hottest content in the city of Jackson and surrounding areas? Check out WeBelieveDigital.com. Also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. We Believe Digital Podcast is here for all your podcasting needs.
The Mississippi Link, African-American female-owned newspaper with a trusted voice that is highly respected throughout the city, state, and nation. Our motto, keepers of the knowledge for people who speak the truth, since 1993. Significantly influences the thoughts, attitudes, and buying decisions of its readers. call us at 601-368-8481 for your advertising needs. If you would like to receive a newspaper in the mail each week, our annual subscription is only $52 per year. That is only $1 per week for you to stay informed regarding many stories that you can only get in the Mississippi Link. Sign up today at themississippiLink.com and click on Home Delivery.
And welcome back to We Believe Digital Newsbreak. Just talking about things now going on in the state of Mississippi. And Mississippi Today had some great reporting on some events that happened in the state over the last couple of days. And we start out with the former Mississippi governor, Phil Bryant. So he was in there before Tate Reeves came in just a couple of years ago. Phil Bryant, you know, has spent over a year since the Back Channel, Anna Wolf and the Mississippi Today Back Channel series started, where they disclosed some different text messages, communications, if you will, between the former Governor Bryant and different folks. And he has resisted and resisted releasing more of those text messages. Well, yesterday he did a complete turnaround about face. I know you're shocked. You know, there could well be a reason why he did that. And he said on Thursday, released what he said were all of his text and email messages related to a welfare fraud investigation, including money spent on building a university volleyball arena that was pushed by NFL Hall of Famer Brett Favre. 436 pages of messages, had several that had already appeared in court filings, key word there, court filings, including exchanges from 2017 to 2019 between the governor and the retired quarterback. Favre saying he had agreed to raise money for the volleyball stadium and asking Bryant for help with that effort. From 2016 to 19, Mississippi Department of Human Services spent more than $77 million in welfare money that was supposed to help the poorest people in the United States, which are here in Mississippi, according to the state auditor. Prosecutors have said the department gave money to nonprofit organizations that spent it on projects such as this $5 million volleyball facility. So thinking that through for a little bit. So the former governor, court filings, a lot of pressure being put, and so he decides to release everything, or at least he says he's releasing everything. Under the constructs of how all this went down, do we expect that is the whole truth and nothing but the truth? No, we don't. But that's what he said, and it was televised yesterday, put out on a local broadcast and so forth. And then also over these last couple of days, the current governor of Virginia, if you're not sitting down, you better sit down for this one. The incumbent governor says he's just not facing a Democratic opponent. You know, he's doing his kickoff. He's doing this kickoff event. You know, and he said he's up against a national cabal of East and West Coast liberal elites and media. Wow, sounds like poor me. He repeatedly warned a campaign kickoff crowd Wednesday that they are out to get Mississippi. Boy, you want to rile up the base. Here he goes, waving that red meat. My friends, he says, this is a different governor's campaign than we've ever seen before in our state. That sounds like somebody else we know that always says we've never seen anything like this. Because we're now up against a local yokel Mississippi Democrat. We're up against a national liberal machine. He told the crowd in Richland on Wednesday that they are radical and vicious. They're reporting on what he does, you know, so they're radical and vicious. They believe welfare is success. They believe that taxes are good and businesses are bad. This is what he actually saying these words. They think boys can be girls, that babies have no life, and that our state and our nation are racist. Well, at least he got some little truth mixed in there. He says they can teach all of us, they think they can teach all of us Mississippians a lesson. They do not like who we are, and they do not like what we believe. Well, I wonder what it is you believe, Mr. Governor. We don't have to think too hard about that. They look at all we have accomplished as conservatives, and they hate it. They see our progress on education and the economy, and they want it to stop. You see, a successful, thriving, growing Mississippi does not work for them. Lowest economic growth of any state in the country, and he calls it thriving economy. Not if it's also a God-fearing, family-loving, and truth-believing, hard-working conservative Mississippi. The man actually said these words at 2 different campaign events, one down on the Gulf Coast on Tuesday, and then a second one in Richland on Wednesday. They want Mississippi to be the butt of their jokes. They want to kick Mississippi around, and you and me are simply in their way. So think that one through. And lastly, on the state level, we mentioned so many times reporting from Mississippi Today on this newscast, which is, really considers them a premier, a valid source, and it seemed like they've proven that over and over. And Anna Wolf, a young, lovely, young, tenacious investigative journalist who I've met and who was had some sharing with, indicated that, or rather, was recently given yet another award for her work. Now, this is the reporter that broke the welfare scandal and got so much dirt to be able to bring this to light. Some people claim to have broken the scandal, like the former Governor Bryant says that he tipped off people, that he was a whistleblower. So we'll see about that. But focusing on corruption and poverty, Anna Wolf seeking justice and gives a voice to her communities most vulnerable. And that comes from the folks that gave her this, Nellie Bly prize. She's had numerous awards, including 2 Goldsmith Prizes, Collier Prize, John Jay and Harry Frank Guggenheim Excellence in Criminal Justice Reporting, Al Newharth Innovative Investigative Journalism Award, Sidney Award, National Press Foundation Poverty and Inequality Award. Just a tremendous list, and now she can add this Nellie Bly Award to her bookcase. So we're really happy to see this hardworking person that goes out there and brings these stories to light. We just may never know. I mean, how many years were they embezzling money out of the TANF fund? And we didn't know. We were clueless, And so it's people like this that shine light on the darkness, and we find out what's really going on. So obviously we believe Digital, wishing her the very best and really proud of her for being recognized for her efforts. In the Jackson-Hines level, there's 3 suspects arrested for an armed robbery of a university of a business on University Boulevard. So not so shocking on the face, but yet one of those, there was a 28-year-old, a 22-year-old, and a 14-year-old armed robbery. All 3 been arrested. Big discussion held yesterday on how to combat Mississippi crime rate, and, with the big focus on Jackson, of course. And, I'm not sure if it was put on by Shadrach White, the state auditor, if he put it on himself. Certainly he draws much attention, seeks much attention to highlight different fraud and embezzlement, illegal activities going on in the state. But he's really big on crime. Remember, he's the one that gave us that fatherlessness report last year. But where do you suppose they would hold a discussion, a community discussion in Jackson? Where do you suppose they would hold that? You think they held it maybe at the medical mall, or maybe over at the two museums? You're talking about crime. Where could they hold an event like that? Well, you know, they held it at the River Hills Country Club. That's where they held the event. And WLBT, this reporting is based on LBT. WLBT asked White if the timing of the event was connected to the passing of the takeover bills, HB 1020 and so forth. And he denied that, said no, it had been planned long in advance of that. But he also added that it was convenient, that it's so close to that being passed. That man is a man with political aspirations. He's not going to be the state auditor that much longer. He's going to find another notch higher, a peg higher to climb on. Political beast. So I don't know what came out of the event. We'll see what all these people over at the country club decided for us. God bless them. Belhaven. Now, there's a school I don't ever mention on this broadcast, I don't think. Although there actually was some money about them maybe receiving some welfare money somehow, some way, but I think they paid it back. Once they were informed where it came from, I think they immediately gave it back. And I'm relying on my memory for that because that was well into last year. But their women's softball, the Belhaven Blazers women's softball, won the first ever Collegiate Conference of the South, CCS, Collegiate Conference of the South Championship. And they did not get a buy-in, automatic bid, because it's just started up. So they worked their way through that championship and got the trophy for the first ever Collegiate Conference of the South Championship. Way to go, Belhaven Blazers. Women's softball, way to go. And the last story as we wind down our time here, Southern Poverty Law Center. Do you ever have a doubt in your mind that these people are watching out for us, keeping an eye on things? They have filed a complaint with the U.S. Department of the Treasury on behalf of Jackson residents. The complaint is against the Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality, MDEQ. And what's it based on? One guess and one guess only. Based on the law, federal and state law that requires, non-discrimination for benefits. Can't discriminate on the funding, on the benefits, the funding that you provide based on race, color, or national origin. It's against the law to do that. And this was, again, a funding on the Jackson water crisis. Southern Poverty Law Center saying, you broke the law when you divvied up your funding. When you have X number of funding being provided to you every year from the legislature, and what is the formula that you're using? And Southern Poverty Law Center say it was discriminatory, and they've filed a complaint against them with the U.S. Department of Treasury, because a lot of that money just comes straight through from nationwide taxpayer money. So that wraps it up for another week with We Believe Digital Newsbreak. Looking at the forecast earlier, it looks like, of course, anything's subject to change with the weather here, but it looks like maybe that Farish Street event will be a go tonight. First Friday on Farish. Tried to do it the beginning of last month, the first Friday of April, but it got rained out, so they did it the second Friday of April. And here we are, first Friday in May. It was a great event. There were 3 different bands playing down there. One black band started out, then white bands after that. But anyway, had over 60 vendors and people walking through the streets with smiling on their faces. Little kids running around eating candy, eating snow cones, people bringing their dogs and walking the dog, and just really, really nice community event. So hope to see you there, 5 o'clock. 5 to 6 tonight, as long as this weather holds. And that's intended to be a tradition that's starting back up again. First Friday on Farish. Have a great weekend. Take care of one another. Stay safe out there.